In times of uncertainty, the well-being of your loved ones becomes your top priority.
Days of heavy rains across the southern state of Rio Grande do Sul, triggering massive floods.
Mandatory evacuations are in place in areas around Houston, Texas, as a major river there quickly rises.
And when the world feels unpredictable, MonkeyWorksPrep.com is here to help you secure peace of mind. Through our affiliate program with My Patriot Supply, MonkeyWorksPrep.com provides you with the supplies to prepare for any situation. From long-term food supplies to smaller prepping kits, you will have everything you need to take care of your family. Because knowing you're prepared is more than just planning. It's about spending time without worry, knowing your loved ones are taken care of. Visit MonkeyWorksPrep.com today.
All right. Hey, welcome, folks. Mil-Spec Osmic here. It's going to be your SITREP. It is 7/9/2024. And boy, let me tell you, NATO meeting here in the United States, they've got a lot to discuss. They have some serious concerns and that are probably pretty legit when it comes to the United States. Remember, the United States is probably 90+% of NATO. And so you may remember Trump at one point called them out and said, hey, look, you guys either step up to the plate or the United States is backing out of NATO. And that's what they're worried about, because if indeed he comes into power yet again, there is a very big likelihood that he is going to probably do something in terms of the NATO piece. We know he's going to stop funding on Ukraine. There's just a lot of different things that are going to impact NATO. The Ukraine thing will go away if Trump comes into office. We are not going to continue to put money into that coffer, okay? Now, the other piece to this is the NATO folks are really concerned because old Sleepy Joe seems to be locking his heels in. And, he's stubborn. We knew he was stubborn. And, you don't become a career politician, a corrupt career politician, without being, that stubborn in terms of people being able to force you out of office. So he's digging his heels in, and I think they are genuinely concerned because he doesn't have, he ain't there, folks. So anyway, there is what we will be looking at, or at least that was the primary. We're going to be looking at a bunch of other things too. We got a lot of moving pieces happening here around the world. So with that said, let's jump into the deets. Currently up over here in Skyglass, 274. It's a pretty big number. Text 2s, EC 45s, T38s, all the trainers have been pulled out, and we're still sitting at 274. That's like I said, it's a good number. All right, now let's look at the H60s. In general, let me put that one, add it to my quiver. Sometimes they just pop in and out, new deliveries or something, but ignore these down here in the Panhandle. Pay attention to these up here in the Northeast. Very active today. All right. And let's take away those. Let's look at the KC-135s and shocker. Now, don't forget, NATO is meeting in New York as we speak, actually. And so you're going to see probably a lot of activity off the eastern seaboard as they protect the NATO folks, okay? But look at this. I mean, that's a sea of air refuelers off the East Coast. Probably, 8 or 10 of them, right? Just off of that. So very active. 29 KC-135s. Now, if I go down and I find the Pegasus B76200s, actually, you know what? They are so low in number, they're not even up here. Oh, here we are, right here. So we got 8 of those we just added to our quiver. Now, let's go over here to Europe and just see what it looks like from that standpoint. I see we got one active over Poland and one active over the UK. So back to the US, we'll take out the air refuelers, and then look at this number right here. These are H-47s. This, pay attention to, all right? These are going to be your banana copters, the Chinooks. That's a high number. And I do note there are a bunch here in the Panhandle, but notice too, headed up the eastern seaboard in this general area, a little Nomad there. That's probably going to be some Spec Ops boys in the general area. Now, we back up. We go over to Europe and see if we've got any. Yeah, England's got a handful, right? That's pretty common for the England side of the house. All right, what else catches my eye as we just go through the deets? Let's see. We'll take out the Hawks because those are going to be trainers too. H-64. So looks like we got some gunships going on. Let's go over to CONUS and see. Yeah, East Coast out here. All right. So that's going to be your Apache gunships. And then we do have a Q4 that is up. That's going to be probably over in our Black Sea side of the house. But look at the E6s and the E3s. You add them. Remember, these are smelling for nukes, right, so to speak. And then, of course, you've got your E6, which are talking to your nukes. So coast to coast. All right, let's do this. Let's break into what we have up currently on the watch list. Now, pay attention to this because we've been watching these balloons. These are called Thunderbolt. It's made by Raven Aerostar, and those are Mill Intel gathering balloons. For some reason, they all came back together. Remember, they work like a mesh network. They gather anything and everything on ground. So it looks like up over the northern side of the U.S., they are showing themselves. All right. Now, interesting, we do have, I just showed you the E6s that are currently up. We can see very active over the eastern seaboard in terms of air refuelers. C-17s have been pretty busy too. We'll look at those here in just a minute. Those balloons are very interesting. And then this one, that one's headed down to Mexico incognito. So I don't know who that is, but I would just say that it's headed down. Looks to be either Central America or southern Mexico. And they don't want you to know who they are. So, all right. And then let's see what else. We got one of the grays, right? It's going to be your agency boys. Looks like Phoenix Air headed across Texas. And then, of course, you know, we've got our air refueler. We just looked at that. E3 Sentries out over the region. And that's kind of Europe. A couple C-17s. And it looks like somebody else headed across the drink, probably for the NATO piece. Okay. All right. Now let's look at Intel aircraft, right? This is going to be intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. And I just noticed there is one asset that goes to the center of the United States up to the northeast, kind of fades out. Notice they're up and down the East Coast. And then notice this kind of, I wouldn't say it's a box, but they are definitely doing a very interesting pattern. We've seen that the last SITREP, where they're just kind of boxing in a particular area. I don't know what they're doing, but they're looking at or for something there, okay? Now, we get over here to Europe and just look in the last 5 days. You got one that just comes in, broken trace. But then look at just the amount, the layers. This thing's like a pedophore. It's absolutely insane, the amount of trace lines that we have over 5 days. That one right there is looking at Serbia and Kosovo. Again, that is a big worry for the U.S. DOD because it's an unknown, right? If Kosovo and Serbia start to mix it up in Eastern Europe, then it's going to be an interesting little environment, to say the least, for our NATO forces. Okay, let's talk covert for just a minute. I just want to point out the interesting piece of this. This can be your Spec Ops community. Last 5 days, Southern California, you expect them. You got MARSOC, SEALs, you got all those dudes down there. This one down into Colombia, that's probably your big takeaway when it comes to your Spec Ops community. And then, of course, this one out of England into France. I don't know which direction they went. And then, of course, you can see this broken trace that heads out over the Middle East. So that tells you they're there. They're just, don't want to be seen. All right. And then, of course, you can see a little bit of moves from Okinawa down to the Philippines. Okay. Let's talk drones. And very, very, very active in Europe. Notice this one that's looking very closely at Israel, Lebanon, the general region. Okay. That's probably a Q4 that came in and just did a little look-see there. And then, of course, this one's interesting because we've been watching this Q4 drone over the last 5 days. That's out of its normal swim lane. Normally it's over the Black Sea, but just notice it's headed up towards the Baltic, towards Kaliningrad. They're concerned about something in order for them to move that Q4 drone way north like that. Then, of course, you can see Japan, drone activity, Southern California, and then that one up to Winnipeg. That's probably just moving an asset, Q9, Customs and Border Patrol. And then that little low altitude European, that's a UK Valkyrie. All right, let's talk R-135s for a minute. This is going to be the nuke sniffer. We watched it disappear down into South America or somewhere out in that general region, and then it came back. It showed up near Caracas, right? Went out here, don't know what it was doing, but then all of a sudden we got one showing here in Caracas or that general area, and then back to Tampa. That's your nuke sniffer, R-135. Don't have it anywhere else, all right? But now let's look at SIGINTEL. This is a little interesting because in the last 5 days, this is all I have right here, right? Remember, this is grabbing all kinds of things. When it comes to SIGINTEL, it is gathering cell traffic data, satellite data, anything that's transponding via an electronic signal, it's snatching it up, okay? All right, let's talk E6s, TACAMO, take charge, move out. This is a Navy asset that is basically talking to your nukes on your subs. Gulf of Mexico, left coast, east coast. Look at the amount of traffic around the Northeast near DC, all right? Now, don't lose sight. We have one that has gone across the drink and haven't seen it come back yet. That's important because that does... for that one to show up in the theater there tells a lot, okay? All right, these are going to be your AWACS. Just see very, very light from an AWACS perspective. In fact, it's I haven't seen it this light in a very long time. For 5 days, they're flying, they're just hiding. That's the difference, okay? Just a little bit of traces over Europe, and then you can see a little hook there down to the Texas border. And then you can see out over Louisiana looking probably at stuff out in the Gulf of Mexico. All right. That's your AWACS. Okay. Now let's do this. I want to show you the C-17 traffic over the last 5 days. It's interesting. Just note the thick traces in and out of Ramstein. Look at the thick ones down towards, I think that's Portugal. It could be Spain. It's hard to tell from this angle. But notice the flights in and out of the Middle East. Yeah, that's because they're picking them up out of Gaza, or they're picking up not in Gaza, but in Egypt, or over in, somewhere there in the Middle East. They take them back to Ramstein. Then they put them on flights, and they bring them back commercially or via charter to the United States. That's the brunt of that. Okay, we get over here to, let me get us over here to CONUS. Actually, let's go to Asia first. And just note, we're pretty busy in Asia as well. I'm going to show you some traces here in just a second that is going to tell a very big story. Okay. Now, note, let me see here. Note the amount in and out of Hawaii. Very, very busy. But notice the amount going up to Alaska. It's because we have currently right now, we have a huge exercise happening with the Germans. They're over there practicing in Alaska, and we're going to be there working with them. And then look at the amount of flights in and out of Haiti. Okay, so we are probably taking people out, if I had to guess, and bringing in some type of humanitarian aid. Okay, but you won't hear them talking anything about Haiti, right? And then here is your Omni for the last 5 days. Now, just note all of the Bigs, the Brownsville, those flights. Note the amount in and out of Hawaii. I think I honestly am beginning to believe this is just they're moving illegals into Hawaii. Now, they don't put them, just make them homeless. They give them actually places to live. So look at Central America. We're picking them up. We're flying them directly in the U.S. The border data right now is irrelevant. It doesn't matter because they're bypassing the border, right? There is no southern border in terms of immigration, okay? A lot of flights. Remember, these are the guys that picked up the Swift Air stuff. So most of this, now this, when you get to Europe, a lot of this is going to be troops. Just notice that pinch point at Istanbul, all right? That becomes very important. And then just note the traces into Egypt and over into like Kuwait and Bahrain, et cetera. Very likely they're just picking up immigrants and bringing them to the U.S., all right? Okay. Then, of course, you've got what's going on in Asia as well from a C-17. Remember, that's transport. It's a long-haul transport. Now, you may be seeing the latest push. I'm not going to talk about it here when it comes to immigrants, that the White House is trying to basically veto the requirement for people to have to show some type of citizenship and form of ID to vote. And Flashbang has said that he will veto that if it comes to his desk. So it really reveals the plan. They're what they're really doing here, and that is they're bringing them in. They're planning on giving them voting rights. They're basically trying to tip the scale for the Democrats. Okay. All right, which really should be treason, but hey, look. All right, now let's kick this up to the side just for a minute. Now I've shown you over here we had a sea of intel balloons, but just note that you still have the others that are not being seen with those C's. So if you take, the 6 or 8 up here plus add the other 5, 6, 7 that we show here, you got a pretty good number. That is because they're listening to everything we do. 1,000,000%, everything. Okay. All right, let's do this. Let's get into what is going on. If you look at the NOTAMs, this is going to be your exercise stuff going on up here with the Gemins. You've got some activity going on near Hawaii. So for all the Ohana monkeys, just give you a little heads up. You got a lot of boxes around your islands. And then this is probably tied to, well, it doesn't give me what it's tied to. All right, well, nonetheless. Weather, more than likely. And then you can see you've got a little box down here in South America. And off the East Coast, as always, you can see some of these others where they have some big, larger boxes coming in. I don't know what this is. This is a flight inspection ops, aerial survey. There you have it. So they're doing some surveys up here, okay? Let's move on. Okay, here's where Flashbang is headed today. He's headed to the Andrew Mellon Auditorium, and he is, anyway, he's going to go over there and speak to the NATO folks, and I'm sure it's going to be a lot of word salad. All right. Look at this. As NATO convenes, leaders worry about the hole in its center. That would be the United States. Remember, this is the same room that NATO was signed in 1949 by Harry S. Truman. This guy was 6 years old at the time. And anyway, he's going to go over there and just dazzle him. Razzle dazzle. Let's move on. Here we go. Can you Trump-proof NATO? As Biden falters, Europeans look to safeguard this military alliance. I think this guy's going to probably put the kibosh on it, and we'll see what happens. But he's already said, hey, I'm going to pull funding. I mean, he's made a lot of statements basically doubling down on what he said back when he was in office originally. So they're in a panic, folks. Just pay attention. All right, look at this. Ukraine basically aims for air defenses at NATO summit. Well, we've already seen the DOD has said they're shifting all the orders, sending them to Ukraine. We've seen them say we got $2.2 billion for air defense. The interesting piece is it says here that Ukraine is unlikely to receive the invitation to join NATO that it is seeking. Why? Because they are the #1 corrupt country in the world. And, oh, by the way, that speaks volumes. You won't let them in NATO because they're so corrupt, yet you're going to send $150 billion, $160 billion to them. This is why they're buying $74 million yachts, folks. So anyway, that is what he's pushing for. He needs missile defense to shoot down low-dollar drones, all right? Cruise missiles too, but yeah. All right, check this out. New Sentinel nuclear warhead program is 81% over budget. Not unheard of. This happens with every military program that comes out. A lot of that has to do with the joint program offices. They basically like to continue to grow the requirements to a point where, as a contractor, you're trying to get back in the box, and they've basically changed the scope of everything so immensely that you can never get back in budget, right? And so anyway, Pentagon says still got to go forward. Why? Because we're in crisis mode. This should tell you all you need to know. This happens every SITREP. We're looking at instances where either we've got factories blowing up or catching on fire, or production is so far behind that there's no way we could possibly fight a war. The interesting piece to this is that this Sentinel nuclear warhead is basically, they've got to go in, they've got $141 billion is now the cost estimate. But they got to go in and basically modernize all your silos, 450 of them across 5 states. Let that sink in just for 1 second. 450 nuclear silos across 5 states. Insane. All right. And then 3 nuclear missile bases and several other testing facilities. So pretty big upgrade they're going to have to mess with. So, all right, let's take a gander at what's going on. Biggs Army Airfield. This is interesting. 747 headed to Portsmouth, and then it's probably picking up, if I had to guess, M1s or something along those lines. Notice the inbound coming in from National Cargo from Pope. All right, and then notice it's headed back to Cherry Point. That very likely troop rotation, okay, or moving troops. All right, I'm seeing a lot of that. And just want to point that out when it comes to what's going on here in the U.S. We'll look at it closer in a minute, but there looks like there are some pretty big movements domestically with U.S. military, okay? All right, look at this. You get over to Dover, just note the 747s, all right? These are all inbound. That from Miami is Amerijet. That's their base. It's probably coming in empty. But outbound, let's go down a little bit. Destination unknown, Camber flight. Headed to Ramstein, so that's probably troops. This one, headed to Ramstein, not troops. Going to be missile defense, more than likely. Okay, Patriot, etc. And then this one's actually NCR headed to Orlando International from there, 747. Don't know what to make of that one. Get over to Ramstein. Big thing here is just as I showed you with the C-17s, the mass amounts of arrivals. Just note the Camber flights all coming inbound. 767-300, so those are going to be troops. All right. Go down a little further. See this one right here? So it comes in bringing troops, but it leaves to JFK International taking immigrants. All right. So troops in, immigrants out. A lot of reach flights. Again, that's Omni, of course, and then this one headed back to Turkey. Just rotating. RZE Poland, forward operating base. Let me just go through. I'm looking for 747s, and I've got them leaving but not arriving, so they're already on ground. I see base commanders, Dutch Air Force. We head down. There's that one leaving Mongolia. Okay, so that's headed back across over to Asia. And yeah, all right. There you have it. RZE Poland. And then this Constanta, we're just going to look at the board. It is very busy, but keep in mind too that it does have commercial flights that come and go from there, but most of these are not. All right, that's a base commander. Base commander, Brio 68, that's an Intel flight. Yeah, pretty active. So that is going to be one of our other forward operating bases besides RZE Poland. Okay, look at this. So Putin is over in India right now. This is very important because they are basically talking about trade. They're talking about oil, and they're talking about giving them the oil that they need. So India is doubling down. Looks like they may be doing the BRICS thing. Given the current political scene, it looks like just yet again shot over the bow of the U.S. because we cannot do anything to keep Russia contained. All right. Here's one, talk about containment. Look at the Schwab talking about humanity must be forced into collaboration with the global elites. Wish this guy would just go away, but we know it's not. This is key to everything biblical that we talk about. You'll own nothing and be happy. Yeah, it's because you'll be a slave. That is their intent. Anyway, Yeah, here it is. All right, let's just move on. Just going to park that out there for you as a data point. All right, look at this. Images show Iranian warship capsized at port. Kind of strange, just a battleship. And it was coming in for some repairs, took on water, and kablunk, down it goes. So this is what it looks like when it was floating. That's the sixth one in 6 years, I think, is what they were saying. So pretty crazy. But again, weird that the hull would just take on water and it would just capsize while sitting in port. Okay, this is going to be your Camber flights. I got one coming inbound to the U.S., everything else over into Europe. Not showing all the flights on here, but just note the amount down the board here. That one's the only one that's Coletta coming out of Dover, 747. Trip 7, MD-11, 6-7s, those are more than likely moving troops all around Europe. All right, I got nothing on the Brits. Kind of unusual. Typically, we've got a lot. To see 0 is very interesting. Same thing with NATO. They seem to not be in the air, or at least showing. Well, we know they're all in New York. Okay, and then these flights, this one, Cherry Point to March Air Force Base, we did have a second one that looked like it was coming out of another location, more than likely carrying some troops. This was the movement I was saying domestically. It looked and appeared that we were moving some military assets around the U.S. The other one, I think, was the 10th Mountain, somewhere in that general area, and it was going right to left, so headed to the West Coast. All right, and then here's Omni. Here's another one for you. Here we go. That's the one I was looking for, and that's not 10th Mountain. That's Idaho. Mountain Home Air Force Base coming out of South Carolina, headed to Idaho, and then Hunter to March. So that's your Omnis. Again, more than likely moving troops, headed to the West Coast. And then same thing here, National Cargo, headed to the West Coast. Just keep eyes on that, folks. That's going to be an interesting data point for you. I don't know what's going on out west. If I pop up the weather map, I do see we got some space ops going on out here. We've got the usual stuff. It's kind of crazy. Now, I did see here in this area that looks like maybe you got Bob Marley coming into town. These are VIPs. And then you go up north here, it looks like we've got Flashbang headed to Milwaukee on the 15th. And let me back that up. And that's kind of the main brunt of things. A lot of air show stuff. This is, the Senior Living Center. All right. Okay. Well, listen, folks, that is going to do it for our SITREP today. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. We'll see you on Thursday. It's going to get really interesting to see how NATO postures given this short window until we have an election, until Trump potentially comes into office. They may very well try to escalate. I think what has happened is that they probably had initial plans for a spring offensive. And because, they drugged their heels in terms of getting them funding out of Washington for so many months that it delayed them getting anything. So now they're in panic mode. Now they're just looking for some way to defense or use defense, missile defense in the Ukraine. And it's not, the best defense is a good offense, right? And so if all you're doing is defensive measures, that tells you that things are not going to plan, right? Because Russia's not going to go away. All right, that's it. You guys, be safe out there. Stay frosty. Keep that powder dry. We'll talk soon. God bless. Monkey out.
In the heat of the moment, precision and excellence are paramount. It's a creed we live by, both in service and beyond. Our beans are sourced from the finest regions, roasted with perfection, and packed with care. Whether you prefer whole beans or ground coffee, Operator Espresso delivers a cup that's unmatched. Whether you're sharing stories with fellow veterans or gearing up for a demanding day, Operator Espresso is there to fuel your mission. Operator Espresso is more than just coffee. It's a tribute to excellence. Join us in our mission. Experience the difference. Taste the honor.